Good morning. This is Dylan Jovanet with Behind the Markets. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, July 29th. I can't believe it's the end of July. Like July ends on Friday. Anyway, today I'd like to talk about gold. You know, when I was on the road, I'm driving through different states and seeing farmland and all the things. And, I was listening to CNBC. My kids have their headphones on, listening to music, trying to ignore me, trying to find a happy place because I'm torturing them. I'm having them listen to lectures on American history. I mean, they're going to be in therapy because of what I did to them on this trip. Anyway, I was listening on CNBC to John Paulson being interviewed, and he's one of the most sophisticated investors. And you see a lot of people on CNBC talking about this and then. I don't really listen to most of them because, they're promoters. They're part of the system to promote and get people involved in things. But John Paulson's one of the few that I do listen to, and he was talking about gold. They're asking him, what's your opinion on gold? And he has the same opinion. His opinion is this: we are in the early stages of a long-term bull market in gold. And, look, I'm going to tell you why he believes that, why Stanley Druckenmiller could argue that, why I believe that. And that is because when you look at Western countries, especially America, which has had the reserve currency, and you see our retirees, you see the fiscal strain that it puts on us. We end up spending more money than we take in. We run these massive deficits to pay for these social services because we don't have the fiscal discipline at all. Nobody, both parties, none of them have had the fiscal discipline to actually tighten that spending. So when you borrow this kind of money, it devalues your currency and it actually disincentivizes people from owning fixed dollar denominated assets, basically bonds that pay fixed coupons. It really puts downward pressure on the dollar. It disincentivizes people from buying your bonds. It's the reason why the Federal Reserve is buying bonds. Is probably the largest bond buyer. So John Paulson has argued that gold is in the early stages of a big bull market because we cannot get our fiscal house in order. It's like Back to the Future. Gold is becoming a world reserve currency once again. It's happening right before our very eyes. As a matter of fact, a couple, 3 months ago, gold became a bigger world reserve currency than the US dollar again for the first time in 30 years. It just goes to show you how we've blown such a privilege. Wow. Anyway, he is really bullish. He says, the best way in his view to get exposure to this kind of gold bull market are companies like Nova Gold Resources and what was the other one? Donlin Gold. That's a project in Alaska. They own 40% of. But, look, Nova Gold owns 40 million ounces, or has a claim on 40 million ounces of gold indicated. So basically, it has a small market cap, just $4.2 billion. So Paulson's a big backer of that. So if you're interested, if you think Paulson is as smart as he is, I mean, this is a guy who made, $2.3 billion shorting the housing market in The Big Short. I mean, when you think of The Big Short, Michael Burry isn't the big shot. It's John Paulson who actually bet against Wall Street and the banks and said, I'll take the other side of your bet, really shorted this stuff and made a fortune. And he, like me, likes gold because, again, when you look, we have too many retirees going for retirement. We never got our house in order. We never made tough fiscal choices. And when you look at the deficits continue as far as the eye can see, and that will keep putting downward pressure on dollar-denominated assets, keep putting upward pressure on gold, which is why central banks around the world are actually buying gold instead of U.S. dollars. They're holding gold as an asset instead of U.S. dollars, which is what they used to hold. They used to buy bonds. They used to hold dollar-denominated assets. The only dollar-denominated asset they're buying right now, basically, are stocks, because U.S. stocks can actually grow earnings above the inflation rate. Everybody's worried about inflation, even though, you see the Federal Reserve is manipulating the interest rate. But my point here is this: Nova Gold Resources, John Paulson likes it. He believes we're in early stages of a gold bull market. I couldn't agree more. I've been saying that for a long time. Doesn't mean we're going to have little down parts like we've had in the last few months, but over time, this is a long-term big time bull market. Anyway, it's all I have for you today. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.